Jim, thank you so much, man. We are super excited to have you on today. You are, everyone here that's watching this likely knows about you, except those that are new to internet marketing. And it has nothing to do with you being a grizzled old man. It has to do with your talents and abilities.
I
You
love
even
how,
said that to me.
I envisioned myself honestly at some point being like the venerable elder statesman of the internet, but somehow I turned into the grizzled old grumpy man, and it's like not even it's not anybody's fault but my own. I just it just is what it is. So
What you
kids,
focus
just
on grows.
stay in school, kids. Don't do drugs.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. So I personally am really excited for this. One of my favorite things to do is talk with people that are way further down the road than I am. And so it's a pleasure here. But the interesting thing is that a lot of the people that we've spoken with thus far have been relatively new. They entered the internet world once basically everything was done for you, right? Once you've got all
Right.
the apps that do it all, and all you have to do is kind of stand out from the crowd and they come running to you. But that's not your story. You
Mm-mm.
entered the internet back in the day when, I mean, you were doing credit card orders over the phone, and I mean, crazy, crazy stuff. So, but before we get into this, can you tell us your background, zero to hero, how you started, where, and the path that you walked to be Jim Edwards?
Sure. Well, it's interesting you say that though, because there were really three things that we had to do when we were when we were doing stuff. And I started selling stuff on the internet in 1997 by accident, meaning I had written a book back in 94. I had been a mortgage broker and a real estate agent. And so I wrote a book in 94, tried to get it published. Nothing happened with it. I piled up a bunch of rejection letters and I was like, screw it. I just threw it in a drawer. And in 1997, I was drinking beer at a fraternity reunion at my college. And I was talking to one of my fraternity brothers who actually I really didn't ever really like. And I'm not sure why I was drinking beer with him, but I was. And he said, yeah, my dad and I got a web server and they owned an advertising agency. And I was like, well, what's a web server? And he told me, and I had kind of known, I had email. Okay. I had a Juno account. I
Yeah,
had been
good
on
old Juno.
AOL, all that stuff. And so I said to him, just out of the blue, I don't know why, but I said, hey, do you think I got a book I wrote. You think I could sell my book on the internet? He said, I don't know. Why not? So I started paying him $150 a month for hosting, for like 125 megabytes of data transfer a month was it. And so I put the thing up there, and what happened was, I had to learn all these things. I had to learn how to put up a website. I had to learn that's why I said there were basically three things we had to do. We had to learn how to create product. We had to learn how to market, and we had to learn how to drive traffic. But it was doing it with like picks and shovels now, or then now you've ever seen that show Gold Rush, where they got these big machines and
Yeah,
they're just feeding stuff
100%.
in the machine, and the machine does all the work, even though they're sitting there complaining like they're working hard sitting in a comfy chair. And so over the years, it took me about 4 years to get everything figured out. But I did get up to the point where it was making enough. This $29 ebook was making enough to cover a house payment, 2 car payments, and an electric bill, which was really good because I had been failing at my website development business. And so, but the thing is, we were making that money. I'd have to call my aunt who owned a craft store at the mall. And the way we were selling ebooks was somebody would send me the order. I was using a Yahoo store. They would send in the order. I would call my aunt. I'd read her the number over the phone. Then I would email the people the Word document of my book, because there was no PDF. There was nothing. I didn't know any of that stuff. So, and then I was explaining to them why their credit card statement was saying Country Treasures on it. Okay. And still we managed to make the whole thing work. And then I discovered, tools started coming around like ClickBank. When I found ClickBank, it was just, this amazing thing. I said, you mean to tell me that I can put up my website and I can drive traffic and somebody can buy it and I can deliver it and I can get paid and I don't have to call my aunt to process the thing? I'm in.
Yeah.
And that was a huge, huge thing for me. You know, something that people take for granted was this. It was like getting electricity back in 1910.
Sure.
It was a huge deal. So what happened was I got in this habit of, okay, the way that I'm going to make money is to see what's coming and figure it out before anybody else, and then learn how to do it, use it in my own business first. And that's a key principle. Use it in my own business first. Once I've mastered it, then I'll turn around and I'll teach it to people.
Mm.
And so what ended up taking place was you saw a pattern there. It was first it was ebooks, then it was MP3 file, and we were doing this back on dial-up too. Do you children realize how lucky you are to have high-speed internet? I mean, we used to have to make our websites so we're loading. It was loading. It was showing the top part of the website while the bottom was loading while they're reading, and you're hoping that they won't get to the point where it's still loading. But we would do MP3 files. Then we started doing screen capture video. Then we were selling, figuring out how to sell CDs and DVDs, then screen capture video, then full motion video, then webinars and software and stuff, and was always about 3 years ahead of the curve, figuring stuff out. So that was my whole thing was it's what you're doing. So I was teaching people how to publish like I had been publishing, and then how you're doing it, the business, and then the mechanics of actually delivering it. Those were the three things we had to deal with at all times. So, I mean, that's kind of how I got to today now. I mean, 20 years later doing this stuff. And what I'm starting to see is that there are a lot of patterns that repeat every 2 to 3 or 4 years. And, you know, we can talk about that if you want, or, I mean, but I'm really seeing patterns repeating. And the other thing I'm seeing is that as things change, that's always where the new opportunities come from. And that's, again, if you see that, you know, ebooks, MP3s, all that stuff, when the gap is wide, there's a bunch of profits. When the gap starts to narrow, that's when all the profits are gone. But about then something new comes, and if you're willing to change and adapt and look, then there's more money to be made. So that's the answer to your question. That's how we got here today.
So
and I left out a bunch.
Gotcha. So we'll get to that bunch, but something that blows my mind. The book that you wrote back in 1994, you are still selling to this very day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if you could do your best, think about the hours that you spent actually writing that book. What do you estimate? And this is going to be a ballpark figure. You have now been paid per hour of work writing that book. Oh, just the writing part?
Yeah,
just the writing, because I want to relate this to creating excellent content.
For that particular book, somewhere around $10,000 an hour.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you're able to craft something that is applicable today, tomorrow, and in 10 years from now.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of evergreen content.
Beautiful. Before we jump forward, I have a question. Did you read all of the Juno terms of service like I did when you signed up for your Juno account?
No. Have I ever read anybody's terms of service? No.
I was like 12 years old, and I'm like, I'm going to have an email account. So I literally sat there on my parents' computer, and I read every line. I was like, okay, I agree. Bam! Literally, that's how it was back in the day. And I had to install it with a CD. I mean, it was crazy. Totally different times. So creating evergreen content allows you to do what? As opposed to the alternative. And what is the alternative trends that you're seeing right now?
Okay, well, there has always been two ways to create content. All right. You can create evergreen content where typically you're focusing on a core either problem or desire that people have in a specific niche audience that is going to be just as applicable today as it will be 20 years from now. Or what you can do is you can create stuff based around a fad or a trend or something that, or I don't want to use the word hack, but because hack used to have a bad connotation, now it has a good connotation, but around a spoof. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like there used to be this thing, I don't know if you remember this, it was called blog and ping. It was this whole thing around SEO that Google, when blogs first came out, so you can't imagine a world
Were
without
you
blogs.
ping other blogs or something like that?
No, you would blog something on your site and you would ping Google. And so that was a way that you could get thousands of pages into Google instantly, because they had no filters, because they didn't realize that some jackalope would come along, make a piece of software that somebody could just, they'd load in a bunch of URLs and other stuff, and then they would literally blog them and ping Google. So these people were pinging Google 1,000 times a minute, but they were getting tens of thousands of junk pages over into Google. I know a guy that made like $1 million selling a piece of software around blog and ping, but within 30 days of when that happened, it was all gone. It was over.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his refund rate was, but you know, when you see spoofs on like or black hat type stuff, things like Facebook hacks or things, you know, and I don't want to use the word hack, but just something that it's, as soon as everybody starts doing it, it's gonna go away. Or as soon as the exploit might be another good word for it.
Yeah.
As soon as whichever site it is, whichever anything it is, figures out that it's been exploited and they fix it, it's going to stop working. Or if it's something that works, but you know, as soon as every jackalope on the internet who is thinking about push button riches starts abusing it, they're going to shut it off. That's the kind of stuff that you might be able to make money in the real quick term. If you've got a list, if you can drive traffic, if it doesn't violate everybody's terms of service by advertising and everything, but it doesn't create long-term profits. And how that hurts you, as opposed to evergreen stuff where, you know, how to write a great ad, how to write a great sales letter, how to create amazing content, how to potty train your dog, how to potty train your cat. You know, just things that people are always going to need to know how to solve a problem or satisfy a desire. Then that's how you can build a relationship with people, that they'll buy more stuff from you. And it really doesn't matter whether it's a physical product or a digital product or a training or whatever it is. You know, fad stuff like pet rocks or fidget spinners. Nobody's talking about fidget spinners now. If you were thinking that you were going to retire because you had found the perfect supplier in China to give you fidget spinners that were guaranteed not to contain radioactive isotopes, and you're just going to get rich forever, that train is gone. So it's one of those things where you have to make a choice. But the evergreen stuff is exactly the way you want to go. And what you want to ask yourself is this a problem that people are going to have now and into the future? I mean, people are always going to have trouble with relationships. They're always going to want to build their business. They're always going to want to, you know, make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, be more popular, be more clean, look cool in front of their friends. Those kinds of things. And when you understand those principles, you can apply them in new areas. But they've got to be based on core principles. Otherwise, you're gone. And I've seen guys over the course of the last 20 years that come out with stuff, and you know, it's the cool thing. They've got their 15 minutes of fame, and it might be a JV Zoo product or a Warrior Forum product or just one of these things where everybody wants to push it, but they're a one-hit wonder. And they're stupid about it because instead of saving their money going, you know what, this might have just been my lottery ticket, this might never happen again, they go buy a big house, they buy the big car, they go get a trophy spouse. Can't say trophy wife anymore because apparently, you know, that's not PC. So they get a trophy significant other of some flavor, and, you know, they buy a unicorn or whatever. And then all of a sudden that cash flow dries up, and they're flipping burgers or working at a bookstore. So, I mean, you got to be smart when you do this
So did you stumble upon this, find a problem, create a solution, or educate on the solution? Or did you see this as a viable strategy and then create the plan around it? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. A
Okay.
lot of people wanting to jump into this they literally ask, how do I find out what to sell? This is my immediate response, and I know it's wrong. My immediate response is, if you have to brainstorm about what itches you because my strategy is, if I have an itch, I scratch it, and birds of a feather flock together. Other people like me will have the same itch, and my solution can scratch theirs as well. That's kind of how I decide what the direction I'm going. But folks that ask, well, I'm just having a hard time imagining what it is to sell. I got nothing for you. And so my question is, did you strategize this, sit down? Because, man, you come out with products all the time and say, okay, based on this strategy that I know evergreen content will remain for the ages, it's timeless, I then will do this, this, and this. Or in the beginning, did you stumble upon it and over the course of a decade or whatever, realize that this was not just viable, but it was, like I said, the timeless way to go forward?
I think the first thing that you need to do, and sort of what you're saying, is you need to figure out what audience you're going to serve. And so one of the best audiences you can start with is an audience that you're already a member of, because you, just like you said, you scratch your own itch. Okay. That means you understand the itch, you understand the problem, you understand the audience, you know the language, you know the hot buttons, you know the things that are going to motivate people. And that's really what I did with my first book, which was How to Sell Your House Yourself. So I knew the audience, I knew the language, I knew the people that were going to buy it, I knew the problems that they have, I knew the motivations, I knew all those things. So it was the right place for me to start. If I had started with something like, I don't know, bike chains or investment advice, something I knew nothing about, I would have failed miserably. So you've got to go after something you know something about. And I know that people have been told forever, you don't have to know anything. You just have to go do a keyword search and you'll see what's popular, then go see what's already selling and all this other stuff. And I hope I can say this, but that's bullshit. Because if it was true, then everybody would be able to do it, but everybody fails when they do that, because you know this from just being in sales, is that you have to understand the customer better than they understand themselves, because they're so inside their tiny little brain that they don't even understand what's motivating them. So you have to know them. So the way to know the customer is to know yourself, especially when you're getting started. So my whole thing was, I started there, and then I realized really quickly that what people will pay money for the fastest is something that solves a problem for them, that's tied to one of those things I rattled off. Actually has been a guiding thing in my life: make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain. Okay. Those 5, and then be popular, look cool in front of your friends, feel more love, be more clean. There's a couple more for the top 10. I don't care. I haven't worried about making money with those, but that's the big thing, has been just identifying a problem that an audience I understand has. And typically people like me, or people who are like I was before I figured stuff out. Okay. So that's, and then what problem can I solve for them to give them to an outcome that they want and charge them a fair price for it. So that has really been, that right there has been the strategy that I have used. And then every once in a while, what also will happen though, is that you'll see what somebody has done. Like I've seen people that will sell a whole bunch of something, let's say for example, I saw a couple 3 years ago, this guy sold a ton of software that helped people make sales videos. And I said, okay, the problem is everybody's buying this. And then there was a whole spate of these things, the whiteboard software and this and that and the other VSL software. And the problem was that nobody was showing these people how to actually make words come out of their mouth that would make those sales video softwares actually do something. So that's when I said, okay, I see all this stuff out there, but as soon as somebody gets this tool, they're going to open up and they'll be like, oh crap, what do I say? So I swooped in and created software that would work with anybody's software to make a video. So all of a sudden, I'm nobody's competition. I'm everybody's friend because their people desperately need what I've got or they're going to refund. So that's another thing that I've seen over the years is just seeing what is real popular and then what is the next logical step that people are going to need, or the thing that as soon as they open it up, they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do there? So
having started in door-to-door sales, I stumbled upon that luckily because I noticed that I started in pest control, then security, then solar. And in each one of those industries, in the beginning, just being a sales operation, I realized that if someone else got a sale, we would never participate in that sale. And that was a loss. They took part of the market from us. So my own internal conversation evolved into how can I make it a win when they make a sale and I benefit from that. And we eventually turned only into fulfillment companies where everyone could sell, but the hard part was financing the accounts, providing the back and all the licensing and all that. And so we jumped into that. And that's kind of what you're talking about. And I segue into this question having said that. Have you found that your real world, not the internet, but your real world experience for however many years you worked in the real world prior significantly impacted the success that you have online?
Yes, in several ways. One, since I was 10 years old working in my family's home-based business, which back 10 years ago, dude, in the 70s, that was last century 70s, by the way. Having a home-based business was not cool. The fact that your parents worked at home, people would look at you like you were one step above a hobo living in a dumpster. And so, but I learned from watching my mom and dad and being there. My mom was all about the customer service and the sales. She was all about, she had her own little database. When we were going to go to craft shows at certain malls, she would send out postcards to these different ladies that she'd gotten relationships with. And we're sitting in the mall and the thing is dead. These people are not making anything, but all these ladies, rich ladies, are coming in to see my mom and buy a crap ton of stuff from her. Then I went into sales. My first job when I graduated from college was, selling insurance, which I totally sucked at, because selling life insurance when you're 21 years old is really hard. And then I learned, in 18 months, I quit or got fired from 7 different jobs. They were all sales jobs. I sold insurance. I sold trunked radios. I sold weight loss. I sold cell phones back in the early 90s.
Wow.
I sold cemetery plots. That sucked. You talk about a dead end business. Anyway, that took a little while. But the thing is, when I finally hit it was when I got into the mortgage business, when I realized, hey, in the mortgage business, people that I can go find need what I have to sell. They have a deadline. Now listen to me. They need what I have to sell. There's a deadline for when they need it by, that they know there's a deadline there. And there are specific referral and marketing sources I can go identify and go after where I know these people are. That's when it flourished. And that's when I went from barely getting by to, I was 23 years old. I was making 6 figures a year, had an Acura in my own house, all that stuff. So understanding a clearly defined market, having something that they really need, and having a deadline that they need to buy from, that was like, that got ingrained in me. And the other thing that really helped was I never had a job that paid a salary. So I was operating off a straight commission or tips, because I was driving for Domino's. And so I had to learn how to live off of an income that was not predictable. And that's kind of where I've learned, and I would share this advice. I always live off of last year's money. Most people are living off money they're hoping to make 5-6 years in the future. They do it with credit cards and mortgages and loans. I'm living off of last year's money. And you hear people say this, but I'm say this with the utmost of confidence. If I stopped today, I'm fine for the rest of my life. I am perfectly fine, would have no change in my lifestyle whatsoever. And I have a pretty cool life. I'm doing it because I like doing it. But that's something you got to learn how to do in this business, whether you're selling physical products, digital products, both. Whatever you're selling, you've got to learn how to do that, because you don't know what the world's going to hold for you in the future. I mean, I had a 5-year period there where I was doing fine, but it's because I had a membership site. But for 5 years, my son-in-law in 2007, October 2007, got hit by an IED in Iraq. And we had to step up and take care of all sorts of medical care and child care. And it was a real gut punch to the family. We thought he was going to lose his leg. We had all these things. I was driving him thousands of miles for therapy and stuff. And so I wasn't making the $1 million a year. I was doing fine, but if I had been living like I had to make $1 million a year to stay even, I would have been in real trouble. But because we did that, we just skated right on through. And then when things normalized, you know, I hit the accelerator again. So I know I'm kind of going off on tangents and stuff, but
that is so valuable, Jim. That is like, that's the one thing. My one fear, and I talked to my wife about this, is that one day I'll have to go back and knock doors, because 12 years of my life was devoted to either knocking doors or building businesses where I knocked doors.
Right.
And it's not fun. You having sold stuff, being commission only, but it taught me so much. Like I am so grateful for it. And I can't tell you the number of guys who I've seen. And because I've seen them, I've avoided this. Jump in, make 60 grand in a summer, buy $100,000 vehicle, say they're never going to knock doors again because they hate it, and then have to go the next year and the next year, because they can't ever get off, because they don't live on the previous year's income, which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those pieces of advice that you need to write in the book to your posterity. Bam, there it goes. Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, dude. I still have those nightmares sometimes. You know, I have nightmares of going back and having to sell houses or selling money and doing all that stuff. And it keeps your mind in the game. It keeps you from being stupid. If you're making 100, if you're making $200,000 a year, live like you're making 80.
Yeah.
You know,
and just this very morning, I experienced it because I was talking to my wife last night. We have probably a dozen different e-com sites, and one of them had this attack. And like, you know, we went from on that site doing like 15 grand a day to doing like $1,000 a day. And so, you know, she's not in the business, but she noticed the difference in the bank account, what she's used to seeing come in every day and what's not coming in. And so that, with everything that's happening this morning, I woke up early and I was just like, okay, I relived that thing where I thought about the ramifications of what would happen. And let me tell you why. You may find this interesting. You probably already know about this. I studied philosophy in college, and I am a closet stoic. I try to read, there's a couple books that I just absolutely love. A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy. I read that a few times a year. Marcus Aurelius, everything that he put out, I read each year. And one of the things they talk about is negative visualization. And in the world today, we call it counting your blessings. But that's totally, you know, you can be grateful for what you have, but recognizing that not only is this moment right now fleeting, but that it is a happy accident. Everything around us is a happy accident. Yeah. And to count on it being gone tomorrow is the one thing that has kept me grounded and not do that. Because my tendency is precisely to do what you're talking about. And that's probably most irresponsible males' tendency is that. So my kids, and going through a daily moment of negative visualization. And most recently I did it because we've had issues with this last pregnancy, and super scary issues. And so I was like, I don't want to be sidestruck if it hits the fan. So I want to prepare. And that concept right there kept me from having to go back for the last decade, starting over and knocking doors. Because my first 3 years, that was what I was. The guy that said I wasn't going to knock doors, then went back and having to knock doors because I lived like I was a king. So that, spot on. I think I cut you off. Did I cut you off?
Yeah, it's fine. I forgot what I was saying, but that's cool. It don't matter. We'll figure out something else to talk about.
Well, yeah. So
and the one thing, I was going to tell you, it's funny. You say you majored in philosophy. I majored in history. And
Okay.
if I had not been drunk the entire month of March my senior year, I would have had a minor in Chinese comparative literature or South American archaeology.
Wow.
So my point though is that, you know, the Stoic thing, and I know all about the negative visualization, which I think is actually something that successful people do subconsciously or without even thinking about it, and then they feel guilty about it, and they're like, then they got to go on their Pollyanna trip to make up for the fact that they would actually visualize the worst case scenario and use it as a motivator and as a roadmap of what not to do. But the thing about majoring in history, I've learned to look for patterns.
Oh.
And so the patterns that I've seen have done me really, really well over the last 20 years. And you can, if you understand the patterns, you can spot and see stuff coming. For example, have you heard about anyone losing their Facebook account? Their Facebook ad account have you heard of anyone just freaking out about that, and they just can't understand why Facebook would take all their money and wouldn't let them do that anymore? Have you heard that?
I have.
Okay, well, that you know, wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth, this is about the 5th time that this has happened in the last 15 years. First, it was a company called GoTo. Then it was Yahoo. Then it was Google AdWords. And then it was not Google, Google AdWords, and now it's Facebook. And what all these companies do is when they're wanting to go public or they're wanting to get their share price and stuff up, they'll take advertising revenue from anybody. Then once they get the numbers up, they're able to go out to corporate advertisers and more institutional type advertisers, not direct response advertisers like us. And they say, hey, look at all this traffic these people are getting. And so why don't you get some of this traffic too? And so they slide in the institutional money, and then the institutional money goes above what we're paying. So you think you're a big swing, and you know what? Spending 25 grand a month with whatever, and then they cut you off because you're doing something they don't like. Anything that has to do with health, income claims, investment stuff, guns, any of the good stuff, you know, shooting. And so that's exactly what's happening with Facebook now. They replaced all of the entrepreneurial crazy money, and now they're making enough that they can push everybody off to the side. That's exactly, I mean, I said 2 years ago that's what was going to happen. So make hay while the sun shines, but you've got to pay attention to what's going on out there, because I know people personally, you know, spending 20, 40, 60, $100,000 a week on Facebook ads. Get your account shut down. Boom. All of a sudden, you know, what is your contingency plan for if that happens? It's not go open another Facebook account, because they shock, surprise, they're able to figure out it's you. Okay. They got facial recognition software that's better than the FBI has. And you got this funny little thing attached to your internet access called an IP address. And I guarantee you, Mark Zuckerberg can figure out that you're using your wife's computer. All right. So that's, you've got to have contingencies when things are going really, really well, because they will not go well forever. I'll tell you another thing that's going to be coming here in the not too distant future is an Amazon slap. You're going to see a slap because people are starting to do things that are skirting their terms of service with digital products and things like that. You know, they're very much against digital products. You can't sell digital downloads through Amazon. It's in their terms of service, but there are people who figured out how to do it. And I'm pretty sure you're going to start seeing some slapping going on with that. I mean, that's the nature of it. And it goes back to that earlier thing you asked me about evergreen versus exploits or dark hat. Let's call black hacks. Yeah. Oh, we made up some black hacks. As soon as that happens enough, then it goes away. And if you're building your whole business around that, then you're screwed. So the problem is that it's like the dark side of the Force. I don't know if you're a big Star Wars fan. You're probably too young to have seen Star Wars when it first came out. I saw Star Wars in theaters when it first came out.
I saw Indiana Jones in theaters, so that was about
That's
the
my
same time,
favorite.
right?
That's my
Me too.
favorite movie
Is that
ever.
why? Is that why we're gonna minor in South American history?
No, just But my roommate,
Archaeology.
he was in archaeology because of Indiana Jones. What were we saying?
You were saying that the Amazon hacks and then the black hacks.
Oh yeah, all the black hack stuff. The problem is that it's like the dark side of the force. If you'll do the black exploits, the black hacks, the stuff that's built around like a trick, you can get better results faster. In other words, you'll make more money quicker. Okay, in some cases, you'll be able to like have that good pop, but then you're like the crackhead chasing that hit that that otherwise you could get through exercise if you and good nutrition and good personal relationships and hygiene, dental care, all these things, and you'll never come back from it. You've got to learn how to provide real value for people. And if you figure out an audience that you can provide real value for, create a relationship with them, and do right by them all the time, that's how you're going to build a sustainable business. No matter what you sell, it doesn't matter whether you're selling physical stuff, digital stuff, a service, a done for you, whatever it is. That's the key to create, just like my mom back at the kitchen table in the 70s, man. That was what it was about: a quality product, a great service, building relationships with your customers. The only difference now is that we can do it through the internet with people that are anywhere. And we have these really cool tools and websites that will help us do it and magnify our efforts massively. I mean, you come up with the right product and you put it up on Amazon, you can make a crap ton of money, which is like so much more than a lot. I mean, that's like a scientific measurement. A crap ton of money that's a lot of money. And the same thing with the website and with Facebook and with social media and all these things. If you do stuff right, the time that it takes to go from A to Z is 1/1000th the time. I mean, look at you. I mean, you went from nothing to a big, crazy star boss guy in how long? I mean, you yeah. So, I mean, it's focused, but you didn't do that by doing something that was just going to go poof. You don't sell a company based on some sort of an exploit. You sell a company based on solid foundation of real stuff being sold to real people. Otherwise, people that really know what they're doing aren't even going to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because as you say this, what comes to mind is, because I've been asked, like, what's your thing? And for me, my thing was, as I looked around and I tried to learn from other people, and you see, you would be an exception to this, but I looked at other people who were big in the internet space, and what I found was that about the time most people start to get real world experience and realize that they have to do that, provide value, that they're competing against everyone else, especially those that are only commission-based, that's when this slew of online marketers kind of dropped out of college or never went, and from high school started going online. And there was not a lot of real world experience. And so they're all doing these things. And for me, my breakaway was I took what worked in the real world and I said, how can I transition that into a digital strategy?
Right.
And man, it was good because a lot of this stuff hadn't been done like online, which amazes me. And so it's funny because I talk to people and they're like, dude, Amazon's big. It's been around. Like it's all over. Like the time to do it was 10 years ago. And I'm like, man, we're not, this is my opinion. We're not even in the gold rush yet. Like this is still the Wild West. It's not even the Wild West yet. People are still staking land. And it's huge. The opportunity. And here is my testament to that. For the first time in history, an affiliate marketer is the richest man on the planet, Jeff Bezos. And I know, it comes and goes, but he's an aggrandized affiliate marketer selling other people's stuff. And he became the richest man for a while in the entire world for all of history.
Yep.
And it's not like it's been that way for 20, 50, 100 years. That's brand new. That means the opportunity is massive right now. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and one other thing that has really become ingrained in my mindset. And when I ask this to other people, it forces them to really hit right down to the bare bones. Is there's three questions you got to answer, three basic questions you got to answer. It's okay. What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? And how do you solve it? Okay. If you're looking for a framework to really just cut through everything, those are the three questions. What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? And how do you solve it? And if you use those as kind of the big, when you're like if you're zooming in on Google Maps, this is where you're getting down into the at least the state view or the street view or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you can get down to the actual cruising along the street type of thing. But if you can't succinctly and intelligently answer those three questions in a way that would make sense to someone who's in your target audience, you're screwed. In other words, the more words you have to take to explain what's going on, the less you understand what the hell you're doing. And that's the truth. All right. So I throw that out there too, but you made me think of that as well. That's been a hugely guiding thing for me that I think is just so subconscious now that it's this whole guiding meta program that's running in my head that I have to be reminded that I installed it there however many years ago.
That's good. That's really good. So I'm going to ask a question, but it comes with a preamble and then an even larger question afterwards. This may or may not blew my mind. A guy that I know, actually, I think I may have already told you this. I don't remember, but for the audience, I'll bring it up right now. A guy that I know that I'm trying to get to speak at EcomCon, but he doesn't want to because he wants to fly under the radar, just had his first $10 million day all off of Facebook ads in a single day. Did I tell you this, Jim? I haven't told you this? Amazing. So, so he sent me his report today. This year so far, 380 million. He thinks he's going to break $1 billion within 12 months. And people are, so when I tell people, they literally say, and it's what you said. They're like, what's his hack? Like he must have some hack. He must have some trick that nobody knows about. And this is what his hack is. He started the company in 2008, and every day, 7 days a week, this guy doesn't take a break. 7 days a week, every single day, he's been on Facebook launching, optimizing, figuring out the best way to use his Facebook ads every day, bar none. Not sickness, not health, not vacation. And so his trick is, what have you done every day since 2008? Consistently. See, he's become a master at this. Now, he sells gold and silver. Funnily, you say invest in precious metals. He sells gold and silver, and it's a lead form. It's leads that he's collecting. When he's got a call center, they call and they sell them gold and silver. Spreads like 20, 30%. But this brings me to my question, which is, I'm fascinated by what people who are so much further ahead of me, their routines. Because people think whatever they want. Like everyone wants to play the piano well and be a millionaire. Many people say it. There are few people that do whatever it is consistently enough to achieve it. What is it that you do every single day? What is your routine that has allowed Jim Edwards to become Jim Edwards?
Well, it's funny you should ask because I have my own sheet that I use to plan my day every single day.
Awesome.
And so do you want to know my daily routine or just my
daily routine? Process? The daily routine and general thought process, the secret.
Okay. So my big thing is I haven't woken up with an alarm clock and I'll use my phone when I have to go catch a flight. Mm-hmm. All right. But I never wake up with an alarm clock, but pretty much I'm up every single morning at 4:30 in the morning. I go to bed at night at 8:30 at night. People might say that sounds, I don't care what people think. Yeah. Every morning I go through my little success ritual where basically I get up, I take my dog out, I get a cup of coffee, and it changes. Sometimes I'll check. Sometimes I'll check my email first thing. And I know you're not supposed to do that, but I don't care if people say, oh, you shouldn't do that. Typically my day will start though within 15 minutes of when I wake up, because I want to get more done in a couple hours, in 3 hours than most people can get done in a whole week. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I can get more done in 3 hours than most people get done in a whole week, honestly. So I have basically 3 or 4 blocks every day. I have to get something, each one of those, I'm getting something significant done. I call it deep work. And so that's where I'm creating software. I'm doing stuff that is just total focus. And typically that will be for between an hour and an hour and 15 minutes at a pop. So the first one, I'm getting myself up, I'm waking up. Sometimes I'll meditate, sometimes I won't. Most times I don't, honestly, because I'm just kind of thinking while I'm walking my dog while she's outside using the bathroom. And then I've got this deep work thing I'm going to do. And then at 7 o'clock, and for the last 5 years, I have a 10 to 15 minute phone call with a friend of mine that we talk about what we're going to get done that day. And then we take turns saying a prayer, and then we're done. And then I go work out. And I'm not talking about a little 30-minute frou-frou Jane Fonda, put on my leotard stuff. I mean, I hit it hard for 90 minutes.
Wow.
And so then what I'll do is I'll come back in, I'll get a shower, I'll get something to eat. And then I get back in my office, and I have basically a 2-hour block from somewhere 9:30 to 12, 9:30 to 11:30, 10 to 12, something like that. Again, getting the most important stuff done without any interruption. And then I'll have lunch, and then basically the whole afternoon, I'll have either 2 more of those deep work blocks, or I'm doing something that is related to making money, doing a webinar, doing an interview, doing a Facebook Live. The other thing that I do, and it's all scheduled. I mean, it's scheduled down in 15-minute increments.
Wow.
And so another thing I'll do though too, and more in the winter, I'll take a nap from 1 to 2. So, maybe it's old man in me or whatever, but that allows me to reset my brain. And I found that if I can take a nap, I can be as fresh as I am at 4:30 in the morning to get creative stuff done. The other thing that I always do is every day I have to add some sort of value to the world. Now that's either an article, it's a video, it's some kind of live something or other, but it's either going to be text, audio, or video. All right. It doesn't have to be a big, long thing. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 200, 300 words. Every single day, though, I create value for the world. And here's the important thing. And then I actually do something proactive to promote that out to the world, because what a lot of people will do is, oh, yeah, I'll write an article. Oh, yeah, I'll do a video, or, oh, yeah, I'll do this. And then they think that their job's done. And so it's kind of like in sales when you used to do a lot of role playing, I assume. I mean, we would do tons and tons of role playing. I would call 200 people I didn't know every single day and ask them if they wanted to sell their house. So we would do tons and tons of role playing. And that, what I found, and then I would actually go do it. Well, I found out later, some of the people I was doing role playing with, as soon as we get off the phone, none of them were actually going and doing their prospecting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I bet you saw it. There'd be guys, you'd sit there, you'd role play, and then they'd go to McDonald's and they'd sit there for 2 hours getting ready to go make a call.
100%. Yeah.
And so you've got to promote the value that you create. Otherwise, you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the world. So you've got to create and promote a piece of value every single day. So, I mean, that's my daily mindset, because what I've found is that, and I still struggle with getting stuff done. I mean, it's we're not superhuman or anything like that, but basically what most people do, and this is where they screw up. All right. You've been told, okay, set a goal and put a date on it. That's pretty much what everybody does on New Year's Day. So I'm going to have $100,000 by December 31st. Okay. What you have to do to achieve any goal is to set the goal and then set the goal aside. And you write down the actions you have to take in order to meet that goal. And then you divide those actions and milestones up into daily actions that are tied to a specific time of day that you're actually going to take those actions. And until you do that, it just doesn't happen. So that's how I manage my day. That's how, I have a master to-do list. Another thing that happens is you start going off on different ideas and stuff. And so I have an idea journal and I have a master to-do list. So when an idea hits me, I write it down in my idea journal, which is basically it's not even lined paper.
Yeah.
It's just white sheets of paper. And then I have a master to-do list so that when I have a great idea, instead of trying to hold on to that idea, I'll outline it in my idea journal and I'll put it on so you can see it's got more master to-do stuff than I got. It won't happen this year, but it gets it out of my head so that I can get back to the stuff that I need to get done. And I know that I'm not going to lose it. So that's how I manage my day. And that's basically, I've found that if I manage my morning and my afternoon, then my week takes care of itself, my month takes care of itself, and my year takes care of itself.
How about recreation? Do you schedule regular moments of recreation? Or what?
Well, working out, you work out real hardcore every day for, 60 to 90 minutes. That, to me, that's my recreation.
Gotcha.
I'm real into guns. I have a gun range on my property. I'll go shoot guns a couple times a week. I'm working. My wife and I, and I'm sorry if I'm breaking up or something, but my wife and I have you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. My wife and I actually have a 3-week timeshare in Aruba in February, which is the best time to go, that we know every year when we're going to be there. So that's something that we plan the year around. We take a cruise every year on my birthday, which is usually the week of Thanksgiving. So we schedule stuff. We just bought a camper. And we need to get better at scheduling that kind of thing because we can take the grandkids with us. But I think that recreation in a lot of cases is an excuse used by people that are doing shit that they hate. And so they're living for their vacation or the weekend and that kind of stuff. And so if you love what you're doing, then your mental energy will go a lot further. I do think that creativity and energy is kind of like a well, and you need to learn how to manage what you draw out of the well before it kind of goes dry for the day, or how to reset your brain and do certain things. And even if you love something a whole lot, the thing is, if you get away on a regular basis, like when we go on a cruise, the first 3 days it's kind of like, oh, just laying back and doing this. But by day 4, dude,
you want to get back.
I got notebooks that I'm filling up with stuff. I'm reading books. I've got, last time we went, I was paying the $8 million a minute
for
to be on the internet, talking back and forth with my programmer about, I designed a whole piece of software while I was on the boat. And my wife's asked me, don't worry about it. You are not going to believe how much money we're going to make when I get this. And as soon as we got done, it was like, boom. So I think that recreation is you got to have some daily recreation. Most people, and here's the thing, all right, this is the pattern that people will go through, as well, at least that I've seen. All right. Guys start out and they're young and they're in shape and they start making this money and they get glued to this damn computer. Mm-hmm. And so they stop working out, they stop exercising, and all of a sudden you're fat and 40. All right. The problem is if you get to be fat and 50, you're going to be dead at 60. Yeah. You have got to balance the physical with the mental and the work stuff. You've got to exercise. You've got to keep yourself in good shape, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. Plus, when you're in good shape, I'm the guy out there running around with my grandkids on the playground. I see the parents and the grandparents, they're sitting on benches looking at me like, who is this crazy fool going on these monkey bars? And I'm looking at them like, look at them people dead on the bench.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of that. It's a daily thing, not a holy crap, let me work like I'm a madman for 6-8 months until I'm totally burnt out, and then I'll go take a vacation for 2 weeks at some really expensive place that I can't enjoy because I'm decompressing like a prisoner of war. So you got to find daily balance. That's the only way.
I found for me, there's a couple things that I do each day that helps me stay on track. And that is number one, and you can call it, I don't think you would, but other people can call it weird or whatever, but I attempt to, whether it's in my mind or not, doesn't matter. But I walk around outside without my shoes on because I sense a grounding power. If I start to get overwhelmed or I start to lose my focus, my mind's wandering, I walk around behind my house. We live on a canyon. So I walk through there, no shoes on. I have to read every day. If I don't read, I find that I'm significantly less productive.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. And maybe
I know what it is. Would you like to know? Would you like to know what it is?
Yeah.
When you read, and this is, I read every single day too. I read some nonfiction, business stuff, and I read fiction as well. What happens is that it's concentrated external stimulation inside your own head. In order for you to be able to be creative and to be productive, and the only input you're getting is what's in here, then you stagnate really fast. But when you get an idea from a book or and books are best because it forces you to use your imagination. So it's kickstarting your brain. That's why is you can't have new ideas without some sort of external stimulation. And books are the best because it's external stimulation that happens internally, which I know sounds kind of weird or stuff, but that's why. That's why if you want to have inspiration, if you want to come up with the next great idea, read about what other people are doing. Watch what other people are doing. You've got to pour in that catalyst in order for you to be able to have something happen. It just stuff just doesn't happen out of thin air,
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. The external stimulation that occurs internally, because it must occur internally. That's
because it forces you to visualize. It forces you to use your own voice inside your head.
Yeah, that's really neat. The third thing is I like to plan some sort of adventure that I use as a sabbatical with either my son or my wife or other children. And I know that I'm going to do it. But the interesting thing is if I wait just a couple weeks prior to plan, then it doesn't have the same effect as if I know for 3 months or 4 months or 5 months that this is happening. There's something that occurs when that's there. And I think it's a variety of things. One, I realize that my time with them is finite. And if I have that planned, I know what's happening. Two, when I'm going through the tedious work, I have that, not long range, but this short-term thing that will occur. And it will occur as a result of this work. And then additionally, I have the sabbatical. I have the respite. I'm not in the thick of it. And I come back just chomping at the bit to get back. I mean, you talk about at day 4, I'm just like it's hard. I have to really. My wife helped when I'm on trips with her. She's like, please, and it's a act of service and sacrifice to not be doing things at that point in time, even though I fully intend. I want to be there. I want to be in the moment, but it's just whatever it is internally that makes me anxious to get back.
I do the same thing, and again, getting back onto this, it's funny, the fat and 40 guy now, I'll be 50 in November. And I mean, talking about the fitness stuff, but you need to schedule stuff physically too. Like in 5 weeks, I'm doing a cool event with a company called Go Ruck. And we're going to walk 25 miles with 35-pound backpacks on. While doing some other stuff. Last year, this past February, I did a half marathon with a 35-pound backpack on because it wasn't hard enough to do the half marathon.
Nice.
And it helps to have people you do that stuff with too. So whatever event you have with a deadline, whether you think about it though, whether it's a physical thing, whether it's a business thing, the stuff that gets done is the stuff that has a deadline and it has social consequences. People are gonna see that you suck. People are see that you didn't train. People are gonna see that you're not serious about your business. You're gonna let people down. Your family is going to be upset with you because you're not following through. And the stuff that you don't put on the schedule is the stuff that never gets done. So you've got to put it on the schedule. So as a deadline, there's got to be some social consequence to it, whether it's for business or whether it's for personal. The same principles apply.
Yeah, 100%. So Jim, in closing, if we liken the next 2 and 3 years, because 10 years, crazy stuff is going to happen, but the next 2 and 3 years of opportunity online in all of its forms, software, physical, digital products, all of the above, services, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of these things, right? If we liken that to a wave, what is the one thing that you can give the audience that they must change, do, whatever the verb is, in order to catch that wave? And if they don't do it, all of the best intentions, all of the infrastructure, everything they'll fail, right? What is that thing to catch the wave that is coming?
Use all the tools at your disposal to create solid relationships with the people who are in your target audience, because no matter what happens, no matter what tools come and go, no matter what fads ebb and flow, you like how I made that rhyme?
I love that.
No matter what, those people that know you, like you, trust you, see you as a source of value. Again, doesn't matter if it's a service, if it's physical products, if it's stuff that you're outsourcing, it doesn't matter. The person with the best, deepest, most genuine relationships with the people in the target audience that you're serving are going to be the people who are always going to win. That's the thing to understand. Whether you're selling stuff on Amazon or you're running $100 million worth of Facebook ads, the people that know you, it sounds like cliche, but the people that know you, like you, trust you, are the ones who are going to pay you for years and years and years to come. All the people that I, have in my audience that really pay attention to what I'm doing, a lot of them have started out with me in just straight email. And now they're the same ones that we're just using different tools to facilitate the relationship that started years and years and years ago. And if you look at the people who have just popped up out of nowhere, like yourself, or, I don't know if you want me mentioning anybody, but I mean, anybody you can see who 10 years ago was doing nothing, 5 years ago was doing, even a couple, 3 years ago, nobody had heard of. If you really look at what they're doing, they have created solid, trusting relationships with people that people know they're going to deliver. People know that they're there for the long haul. It might be that they just trust a brand on Amazon, or they just trust, the voice that they hear that's writing the sales copy or whatever it is. But you can't look at it like the internet is this amorphous place where things just happen. You have to understand that it's people on the other end of that who are paying attention with their time, with their money, with their attention. And those people, you develop a relationship of trust with them. And then whatever tools come and go, it doesn't matter, because you'll find a way to be able to communicate with them and deliver that value. And so that would be the biggest thing I would tell you. And that goes beyond the next 2 or 3 years. That goes for as long as you choose to use the internet and connected tools and stuff to run your business, which really is forever now, because this is how it works. Unless you're going to go open a produce stand on the side of the road, which you'd be an idiot not to if you could, and then to have a store where people could get fresh produce delivered overnight anywhere in the country by Federal Express. You're using the internet to do business the same way my mom did business from the kitchen table back in the mid-70s, because that's the way people do business. And the thing is, if you'll do that, you are giving yourself the biggest competitive advantage over everybody else who refuses to do that, or who just doesn't even know how to do that. And that's where old guys like me have an advantage over some of these young punks, because they don't understand that. They're just thinking, oh, we're going to make a ton of money. And they make a ton of money, but they don't lay a solid foundation. So don't make that mistake. Always remember, on every single transaction, no matter where it comes from, no matter whether it's off your own website, your own funnel, whether it's coming through Amazon or whatever, there's always a person on the other side of that transaction. And you've got to develop a trusting relationship with them if you want to really, really thrive in the future.
That's amazing, Jim. Absolutely gold. Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you, join your list, etc.? Where can they go?
They can go check out my website at the JimEdwardsMethod.com.
Awesome.
That would probably be the easiest thing.
Okay. Awesome. We'll link to that below. Check out the JimEdwardsMethod.com. Jim, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it. Literally,
thanks for having me.
Like I'm just sitting here drinking it all up. So appreciate that. Love it. Hashtag no homo. Sorry, dude. I think that's so funny.
No, what?
Hashtag no homo. There's a hilarious YouTube video you got to check out. Just type in YouTube, hashtag no homo. It's this guy walking up and he's like telling other dudes that they look great. And then he says, hashtag no homo.
Wow.
Really all right, Jim, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. And the JimEdwardsMethod.com, jump on. Even though Jim and I know each other relatively recently, when I first jumped online, you were one of the guys that I set up as a virtual mentor. So thank you so much, man, for all of the work you do.
And you still succeeded. Good job.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Talk soon.